Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. Good to see you here. Good to know that you're practicing. Thank you for that. I hope this finds you in good health and secure as always. We are continuing with the BDK translation of the Lotus Sutra. We are starting chapter 3, the parable chapter, and Shariputra is first of all going to respond to Bhagavat's or Shakyamuni's iteration on skillful means. And it points to something which, by the way, I never showed the last slide on the self video. Let me go ahead and put that up. I used as an example of dynamic Buddhist self, as if you'll recall, the previous examples of the samsaric self had a cloud that was constantly growing of identity. Whereas in Buddhism, we don't grow that identity. What we are is a constantly changing reality of self, moment to moment to moment to moment. There's a reinstantiation, not a continuation, right? So I used in the example here, to keep it simply simplified, the 5 skandhas. I know, simplified, right? But I just wanted to make the point that, and this slide, again, is part of the slide, the PDF on threefoldlotus.com, so you can download it or view it, print it, whatever. These 5 skandhas eventually become the 9 consciousnesses, right? And all of them follow this same rule. They're constantly being updated moment to moment via the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment that influence and what we either consciously or unconsciously, if you will, using modern psychological terms, influence, yeah? And how we're influenced or whether we are influencing. Again, that battle, as Shakyamuni said, between letting the mind just run our experience or whether we take hold of our mind and direct our experience. As subtle as that may sound, it is not an easy task, right? As anyone who's practiced for a while knows. It's obvious, it's working, we experience our life changing because we chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. But sometimes we're accustomed to physical stimuli, aren't we? You cut yourself, you know you cut yourself, and you slowly heal. But when you alter or affect your karma or lessen your repercussions of karmic tendencies, it's more experiential. It's rather than physical. Yes, it's more a sense, a mental presentation, if you will, that we recognize. That's where Buddhism lies. Okay, so we're going to start the parable. And as I said, it's going to start with Shariputra kind of being blown away by the last chapter, the skillful means. Thereupon Shariputra stood up ecstatic and joyful, pressed his palms together and gazing at the Buddha, the Bhagavat, said, "Now hearing the words of this Dharma from the Bhagavat, my heart is full of joy, for I have experienced something unprecedented." I've experienced something unprecedented, right? What is the reason for this? In the past, when I heard this Dharma from the Buddha and saw the Bodhisattvas receive their predictions, I was not included, right? Because he's learning. He's the world of learning. He hears the Buddha's words. He tries to inculcate them as much as he can. He's looking forward to Pratyeka Buddha-ness, yeah? He's very learned, but he used to watch and listen to Shakyamuni predict for the Bodhisattva practitioners their future enlightenment never included those of learning and realization, right? They're the ichantikas. They're stuck on words. They're stuck on doctrine. They're not actualizing, really understanding, inculcating into their own experience what the teachings are pointing to. They're just hung up on the teachings. So he never included them as future enlightened beings. So Shariputra is saying here, is like, I've always been envious, but now after hearing a skillful means, now I get it, right? I grieved because I thought I had been deprived of the immeasurable wisdom and insight of the Tathagata. Why is he leaving me out? O Bhagavat. Now see, this is something that confuses people. Not O Bhagavat, but when he says, I've been deprived by the Tathagata. See, that's that idea that my enlightenment will come from this person, which is a deep misunderstanding. It's that craving and clinging of samsara right there. Because the Buddha, the Tathagata that he should be looking for, the deprivation that he's announcing, is his own enlightenment, not Shakyamuni. It's interesting that it's stated that way and not Shakyamuni's name, yeah? The Tathagata is the enlightened mind. And it's his enlightened mind that's depriving him. You see the conundrum there? This is the misunderstanding. O Bhagavat, while I was dwelling alone under forest trees, whether sitting or walking, I was constantly thinking this: since I have also realized the true nature of the Dharma, why has the Tathagata tried to save us or liberate us with the teachings of an inferior vehicle? If it's not going to get me there, if you can't predict my Buddhahood, then why am I doing this? Because you're seeking your enlightenment outside of yourself, right? What would Nichiren say? Never seek this Gohonzon, this enlightening, opening mind to your Buddha eye, or the Buddha eye for your experience of Buddha-ness outside your flesh and blood body. It's you. The fault is ours, not the Bhagavat's. Why is this? If we had waited for your explanation about the way to achieve highest complete enlightenment, we certainly would have been able to liberate ourselves by the means of the Mahayana. Right? He's explicitly saying, being of learning and realization, we're really stuck in the Hinayana, the lesser vehicles. However, we did not understand that you were teaching with skillful means. We thought what you were teaching us was it. We didn't understand it was a progressively preparatory teaching. Oh. According to what is appropriate to us. When we first heard the Buddha's teachings, we immediately accepted, contemplated, and understood it. But you didn't understand that it was leading you further. You thought you had achieved what you had not achieved. This is the arrogance of man, right? This is something every teenager, once we get into our 20s, and certainly in our 30s, we look back and we go, ugh, God, how could I have been so dense, so blind, so convinced of my own limited understanding, yeah? Right? O Bhagavat, since long ago I have reproached myself incessantly day and night, but now from the Buddha we have heard the unprecedented Dharma that we have never heard before, and it has removed all our doubts. I have obtained peace and tranquility in body and mind. Today, I have finally realized that I am truly the heir of the Buddha. born from the mouth of the Buddha, incarnated from the Dharma, and that I have inherited a part of the Buddha Dharma. Then Shariputra, wanting to elaborate this meaning, spoke again in verse. And I don't know about you, but I usually find the verse to be much more easily understandable than the larger storytelling, but we're all different. So, when I heard the words of this Dharma, experienced something unprecedented, my heart overflowed with joy, and I was rid of all my doubts. From long ago, ever since I heard the teaching of the Buddha, I have not lost the Mahayana. The words of the Buddhas are extremely rare and are capable of ridding sentient beings of their suffering, their clinging and craving. You know? Although I had already attained freedom from corruption by hearing the Buddha's voice, I have also been rid of my anxiety. Now, I'm going to point something out here that you may not have considered, most wouldn't. When he says, by hearing the Buddha's voice, I have also been rid of my anxiety. What is the Buddha's voice? Are we talking about Shakyamuni speaking to the crowd here? I want to extend your understanding of that just a little bit. Buddhism has long referred to the voice as access to Buddha-ness. What do we do when we chant? See, that's a subtlety of chanting that most don't realize. Is that by chanting Namu and Myoho Renge Kyo being what Shakyamuni is saying, this is enlightenment. Are we not the Buddha's voice? The Buddha being our enlightened mind? Yeah, chanting is profound stuff. It's not just blabbing sounds. It's an invocation, a profound invocation, right? With our samsaric self, body, invoking our Buddha mind, our Buddha self, our moment-to-moment Buddha-ness. That's the power of the Buddha's voice, right? Whether I was dwelling in a mountain valley or under forest trees, whether I was sitting or walking, grieving and blaming myself deeply, I thought incessantly, how have I deceived myself? Oh, that's a switch. Earlier, he thought he'd been deprived by the Tathagata, like it was something outside himself. But now he says the truth. Have I deceived myself? It's your Tathagata-ness, your Buddha-ness. You've deceived yourself from. Buddhism always comes back to that. Everything's in your mind. Get your mind right. I am also the heir of the Buddhas. Buddhas, right? Because all experiences of awareness are aware of the same things. It's just our engagement, immersion in it that we're all obfuscated from with our samsaric mind, yeah? Nevertheless, in the future, I shall not be able to explain the highest path. The golden color, the 32 marks, the 10 powers, and the liberations are all in the same Dharma. And yet I have not attained any of these. He's now being humble about, oh yeah, I thought I'd attained what I hadn't attained yet. Moreover, such qualities as the 80 excellent and 18 special characteristics are completely lost to me. When I was wandering alone, I saw the Buddha in the great assembly, filling the 10 directions with his fame and greatly benefiting sentient beings, and I thought, I have lost all of these benefits because I have been deceiving myself. I thought about this constantly, day and night. And I wanted to ask the Bhagavat. Sorry, my nose is being an obstacle this morning, and I don't want to be rude, but sorry about that. I thought about this constantly day and night, and I wanted to ask the Bhagavat, have I or have I not lost these? I always saw the Bhagavat praising the Bodhisattvas. That is why I pondered over such matters as these both day and night. Now I have heard the words of the Buddha explaining to sentient beings. You notice he's not just saying the assembly or the Bodhisattvas or us. He's saying all sentient beings. Remember, ceremony in the sky. This reaches to all minds. The incorruptible Dharma, which is difficult to comprehend, and making them enter the terrace of enlightenment. Formerly, I was attached to false views and was a teacher of Brahmins. The Bhagavat, knowing my mind, removed the false views and taught nirvana. I got rid of false views completely and attained the teaching of emptiness. At that time, I considered myself to have attained nirvana. Right? He understood the difference between the samsaric I, self, and the Buddhist I. It's a moment-to-moment instantiation. This self, this self, this self, this self, everyone being slightly modified in accord with our actions, thoughts, words, right? We hear this constantly, but we don't really consider what it means. That emptiness he's talking about now, in lieu of that last video on the self, is the emptiness of the clinging. You're clinging to emptiness. Be here in this moment. Don't cling to it, but experience it. You can't cling to it. Remember how long a moment is? You might want to look that up in the Buddhism reference book and the video I did on it, a moment. What is it? 0.49 zeros or 50 zeros to the first digits of 5. I mean, you can't conceive of it in your mind. You can only look at it and be awed by how brief a moment is. And yet, over 3,000 realms of movement, influence are being applied to each and every moment. So your attitude, your intent, your Buddha mind being awake in that moment, very important, right? Lest you just drift back to old tendencies, old habits. Removed the false views and taught nirvana. I got rid of false views completely and attained the teaching of emptiness. At that time, I considered myself to have attained nirvana. But now I have become aware that this was not the real nirvana. When I become a Buddha, confident now, right? I shall be endowed with the 32 marks and be honored by devas, humans, yakshas, and nagas. Only then can it be said that I have permanently attained nirvana without residue, right? Again, if you look up nirvana in the Buddhism reference, and I talk about it in a video on the Buddhism reference, right? Because I captured everything as podcasts, both video and oral. If you look up nirvana, there's 2 different types of nirvana, and he's just alliterated it. Before the Great Assembly, the Buddha has proclaimed that I will become a Buddha. And after hearing these words of the Dharma, I was immediately rid of all my doubts. When I first heard this teaching of the Buddhas, I was greatly startled, and I thought, I wonder if Mara, acting like the Buddha, is confusing me. Right? Mara being the influence of samsara. And maybe this influence of samsara is posing as the Buddha just to assuage and mislead me. But the Buddha, who teaches skillfully, by means of various explanations and illustrations, has made my mind tranquil like the ocean. While listening to him, I was freed from the web of my doubts. The Buddha has said that immeasurable Buddhas who have attained parinirvana in the past, established in the use of skillful means, have also taught this Dharma. Shakyamuni is at this point already presaging, foreboding the 16th chapter, the lifespan of the Tathagata, isn't he? Right? I'm not the first, is what he's saying. Clue. Immeasurable Buddhas in the present and future will also teach this Dharma with various skillful means. Well, that's you and I. Because Buddhas, as we all know, aren't people. They're the sentient minds of people, people whom we call bodhisattvas. Truly, if we were going to be picky about words and terms, we would say that Shakyamuni, having attained Buddhahood, lived as the highest learned bodhisattva, right? But because people weren't ready to understand all of that, he just took on the moniker of Buddha. But then he had to relinquish that because it was misleading. And the Lotus Sutra, he does exactly that. The present Bhagavat, from the time he was born and renounced household life until he obtained the path and turned the wheel of the Dharma, has also taught through skillful means. The Bhagavat teaches the real path, but the wicked one does not. I think he's referring to Mara, the samsaric mind, yeah? Therefore, I know definitely that it was not Mara acting like the Buddha. Because I fell into a web of doubt, I thought that Mara was impersonating the Buddha. When I heard the voice of the Buddha, profound and very subtle, fluently explaining the pure Dharma, I became full of great joy. My doubts are completely and forever exhausted, and I have achieved the true wisdom. I will finally, definitely become a Buddha. Honored by devas and humans, I will turn the wheel of the highest Dharma and lead and inspire the bodhisattvas. Okay. At that time, the Buddha said to Shariputra, I will now reveal to you before the great assembly of devas, humans, shramanas, and brahmans, that in the past, in the presence of 200,000 kotis of Buddhas, I led and inspired you constantly for the sake of the highest path. In other words, Buddha's always been here. You have followed my instructions for a long time because I led you with skillful means. You were born in my Dharma. Another what word am I looking for? O Shariputra, in the past I inspired you to seek the Buddha path. Yet just now you have completely forgotten this and consider yourself to have attained nirvana. Now, because I want you to remember the path that you practiced according to your original vow in the past, I will teach the Shravakas, right, those people of learning, the Mahayana Sutra called the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo. The instruction for the bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. O Shariputra, in the future, after immeasurable, limitless, and inconceivable kalpas, you will have paid homage to thousands of myriads of kotas of Buddhas, preserved the true Dharma, and mastered the path practiced by the Bodhisattvas. You will become a Buddha called Padmaprabha, a Tathagata. And in here, they're still hung up on the word arhat, but that's incomplete. Completely enlightenment, again, I don't know why they're using the word arhat. They're different sectarian influences, biases. It's a troublesome word. Perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha Bhagavat. Now, Buddha is perfect, complete enlightenment. And it hasn't been introduced until the Lotus Sutra. By definition, arhat doesn't belong in this. Arhat is an accomplished individual by virtue of self-practice without the commitment to enlighten all other beings. They're still attached to the idea of a self. I've gotten into that in previous videos. You can do your own research on that. I may have to do some more myself, but just know that they shouldn't really be using that word. It's confusing. It's muddying the waters, yeah? Your land will be called Viraja. Its earth will be level and pure, ornamented, peaceful, and rich. Now, what do we know from the Vimalakirti Sutra, right? The Vimalakirti Sutra is centrally about all lands. All lands are individual experiences of our samsaric physical environment. But when we attain Buddhahood, when we go through the Buddha eye, right? Not the I as in me, but the I as in EYE, our sense organs of experience. And we see all phenomena with our sentient minds the way they truly are, then everything we experience is the Buddha land, is the enlightened place, because it's our mind that experiences, not the place. So when he says your land will be called Viraja, he's still using skillful means. He's still saying the land that you will now perceive in your enlightenment, will give it a name. But it's the same land that you're now in. You'll just experience it differently because your mind will have been opened to the truth, Buddha-ness. Okay? The devas and humans will prosper. The earth will be made of lapis lazuli with a well-planned network of roads like a chessboard bordered with golden cords, rows of 7 jeweled trees, which are always full of flowers and fruits, will line the borders of these roads. The Tathagata Padmaprabha will also lead and inspire sentient beings by means of the 3 vehicles. O Shariputra, when the Buddha appears, even though his will not be a troubled world, he will teach the 3 vehicles because of his original vow. This kalpa will be called the Maharatna Praptimandita, meaning adorned with great jewels. Okay, just say that. Why will it be called the Maharatna Pratimandita? Because in that world of the bodhisattvas will be like great jewels. The number of these bodhisattvas will be immeasurable, limitless, inconceivable, and beyond all comparison, known only by those with the power of the Buddha's wisdom. Right? This will be your enlightened land, not because the land has changed, not because jewels will be walking around bipedal, but your perception, your experience of the very same world you've been in all along will be forever altered. You will see truthfully, constantly, moment to moment to moment to moment. All right. When they want to walk, they will step on jeweled flowers. And these bodhisattvas will not be those who are just setting out. Over a long time, they will have planted roots of good merit and practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity in the presence of immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas. Lots of chanting. They will always be praised by the Buddhas and continuously practice the Buddha wisdom. They will be inspired by their practice. That's what that says, right? We won't have visitors coming to our tent or our house or our trailer or whatever, constantly encouraging us, going, way to go, keep going. That will be our enlightenment, our mind, right? Right? You ever in your practice, if you practice for a good amount of time, you know there are times when your confidence wanes, you get tired, you're not sure, doubts creep in. But it doesn't take long, usually, before you start seeing old things come back into your life that you'd completely forgotten about and thought, oh my gosh, I haven't experienced that. No, I'm not chanting. Shoot, I need to get back to practice. I kind of knew this was going to happen, but... and you end up practicing again, because you know. That's the Buddha's knocking at the door telling you, You see? It's nothing new. They will be endowed with transcendent powers and know well all the teachings of the Dharma. They will be honest, without falsity, and firm in recollection. That world will be filled with bodhisattvas like these. O Shariputra, the lifespan of this Buddha Padmaprabha will be 12 immediate kalpas, not including the period after he becomes a prince and before he becomes a Buddha. And the lifespan of the people in that world will be 8 intermediate kalpas. Again, the time thing, right? I talk about it a lot in the book, Buddhism reference, but also in many videos I've talked about the Buddha's alliteration or talking about time, the experience of time, right? It's the way we measure time, but measurement is fluid depending on our experience, isn't it? So, kalpas. After these 12 intermediate kalpas have passed, the Tathagata Padmaprabha will predict Bodhisattva, Vritti Paripurna's attainment of highest complete enlightenment, and will address the monks saying, this Bodhisattva, we'll just call him D, will become the next Buddha after me. His name will be Padmavrashbhavikrama, a Tathagata completely enlightened. His Buddha world will also be like this one. O Shariputra, after the parinirvana of the Buddha Padmaprabha, the true Dharma will remain in this world for 32 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also remain in the world for 32 intermediate kalpas. Then the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this again, spoke in verse. And we'll save that for the next video. We haven't gotten to the fable yet. We're still talking about good old Shariputra and his awakening, yes? But that's okay. We'll get to the fable. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope that I'm making this at least a little bit more, should I say, comprehensible or personal, right? Relatable. I mean, that's what I started this resource for, and I hope that I continue to do that. I have your validation for that, so thank you for liking and subscribing. It helps grow. It's a Bodhisattva act, right? Helps grow the Sangha. The ebooks on threefoldlotus.com. All the links are in the description below. So please check them out. There's a lot of free information on threefoldlotus.com. As well as, get the podcasts for free. And if you're so inclined and you can do it, Patreon, Somebody just joined directly through PayPal. Thank you. For those over a certain amount of regular donations, I've been offering free copies of the electronic version or the ebook of the Buddhism reference. I really would like to have everyone in the Sangha have a copy of that book because it'll help you. It's a quick reference to these terms and books and words. I mean, that really, I think, really help. If you did nothing else but read the entire Buddhism reference book that I've recently published, and, you know, at some point there'll be a revision with more words in them. If you think of one, you know, let me know in the comments. But I think it would go a long way to deepen your understanding of your practice. Yeah. Okay. Not self-promotion. I just want to give you all the tools you need to stay confident, right? Keep your practice strong. Savor it. And in that regard, be kind to yourself. Take care of your health, right? The more you learn to be kind to yourself, the more your kindness will affect those in your environment. You don't even have to try. It'll just happen. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you in the next one, yeah? Okay. Bye for now.